Yeah. Yo, we are live. What's up, everybody? This is Leo from Roadside Stories. Today with an actual face-to-face interview. I'm very excited about this.
Hi.
So he's sorting out right now to share the post on his pages as well, and you will receive an insight to who the guy next to is to me in a second. But first of all, let me give you an introduction if you're new to the series, what I'm doing with these interviews. I'm Leo, I'm the creator of Roadside Stories, and I basically highlight and show how location-independent freelancers and entrepreneurs travel around the world while working on their passion projects, whatever that might entail. And today I have a very exciting speaker because he turned his passion for sports, which I believe many of you can relate to, into a project that he actually can monetize and live anywhere and work anywhere from. Sam, do you want to give us an introduction?
Yes, so my name is Sam Nita. I run British basketball website Hoopsfix.com. It's the UK's largest basketball website. We cover every level of the British game from juniors all the way up through to seniors. And then also freelance with basketball teams around their digital content. And at the moment I'm trying to make the transition away from freelancing into software products. So I hired a developer at the start of the summer and we're building out a product to help basketball teams create social media graphics.
And one of my questions that I'm always interested in when I meet like very inspiring people like you, how did you get started? Like how did you come about creating a website that now has turned into Britain's biggest basketball website?
So, I mean, I obviously love basketball. When I was 13, 14 and I first started playing, I thought I was going to the NBA like every other kid. Obviously that didn't happen. But of course, kind of as I went through university and kind of started having the realisation that I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player, I knew that I wanted to be self-employed. I knew I wanted to do my own thing. So 2009, my original idea, I wanted to create sort of late night scrimmages for kids in London. There was a big problem with knife crime, and so I thought that we could create basketball scrimmages. They could come, get them off the streets, and hopefully do a little bit to give them something to do and reduce crime in the capital. As part of that, I had interest in websites and digital marketing, and I thought it'd be really good if we had a blog. So the blog would have really cool content on, and that's what would draw people in, give the site traffic, and they would see that we're running these late night scrimmages, and that would get them to come to the scrimmages. So I went to an event in the summer of 2009 called Future Stars in Kingston, which was an international junior basketball tournament that the England under-18s were competing in. I filmed the whole thing, I edited the video and put it on YouTube, and it did pretty well. I did a few thousand views, and I had loads of people hitting me up and being like, oh, what's the next thing you're going to be filming, what else are you going to be covering? And I thought, well, maybe this is what I should be doing instead. You know, for me growing up, I had no idea about the British game. It was, you know, NBA or nothing. I didn't know that we had players in the NBA. I didn't know we had players playing professionally abroad. I didn't know we had successful junior national teams. So I figured that I would launch a website to shine a light on all of that stuff. So that was in the summer of 2009, and then January the 1st, 2010, we kind of rebranded the website into Hoopsfix. We launched it as a new site, and that was kind of the beginning.
That's so cool. Like, I really enjoy meeting people, just like you, who had a passion, but they didn't see necessarily like the monetary rewards afterwards. Like so many people nowadays, like millennials, they go into something and thinking immediately, oh, how can I monetize something? But I find that the most rewarding route is to have a passion, to see that there's a lack. Like, for example, as you talk about British basketball, right? It's either NBA or nothing, and like you saw that there was a lack in information about British basketball, and also like the opportunities that are out there, and just basically highlight to an audience that's interested in it.
Yeah, for real. It's you know, as you said, it's a long-term thing. Like I don't think anyone would choose to get involved with British basketball if they were chasing money. And for the from 2009 to 2012, first 3 years, 3.5 years, it was evenings and weekends. You know, I was working a variety of different full-time jobs, and I would, you know, as soon as I get in the evening, spend time updating the website. I was even, at that time I was working at a street fundraiser, and you know, like working in news, you have to be very reactive. So things happen and it's like, oh, you need to be the first to publish a story, even though there wasn't any other competition. I don't know why I was getting so caught up in it. But I remember I'd be working out on the streets of London, and I'd get a press release about, you know, the Great Britain Under-20 squad or whatever, and I was a team leader, so I'd tell my team, oh, I've got to go and do some admin work. I'd run to an internet cafe and I'd jump on, log in, write the article, publish it, and to get it online as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And that was how it is for the first 3 years. It was, all of my disposable income was spent on traveling the country, going to games, filming games, uploading highlights, writing stories. And then 2012, when the Olympics were in London, there was all these brands that had money for basketball that don't normally have money for basketball. So I kind of realised that I was making enough money on the side to potentially be able to quit my job. So I did. I quit my job. That summer 2012, the Olympics was obviously in London. It was great. Like, I had an amazing time. I wasn't earning good money, but it was enough for me to live.
Yeah. And
then of course the Olympics came and went, and then with it, all the money left with it as well. So for the first sort of year and a half that I was full-time self-employed, I was broke as hell. Like, I think that my tax return for the first year full-time self-employed, I made like £11,000 or something, and when you take into account my rent in London is going to be like £5,000-6,000 of that. I was living on next to nothing. But every single time that I was like, I'm gonna have to get a job, I'd look for a job. I would make just an extra 50 quid here, an extra 100 quid there, that would just keep my head above water. And I kind of rode through the storm, and obviously now I'm in a position where I'm not making ridiculous amounts of money by any sake of the imagination, but I can survive and have kind of got to a point where it's okay, it's doing okay.
Yeah, I enjoy talking about people who really show persistence in the long run, because some people are fortunate enough that they start out with something, like with an idea, and it turns profitable rather quickly, so they don't really have to show their like stamina or their persistence in the long run. But I think your story highlights it quite well, that you followed something that you were passionate about for a long period of time before it ever paid off. And I'm curious, because so many people think, like when they see people living a life that you're living nowadays, like you're out here in Bali and you were able to every day spend time on something that you love doing, right? And many people also have the perception, oh, you're lucky. But then in the end, like, you created this, and I'd like to ask you, were there moments in time where you think, okay, like, I'm going to give this up because this is not going to like turn profitable to me, and how did you overcome this, basically?
I think about that all the time still. You know, like, I always think, like, if I was in any other country in Europe, or if I was in the States doing exactly what I do, this wouldn't be such a struggle. And British basketball does, it grinds you down. There's so much politics involved. I've upset a lot of people over the years, unintentionally, but there's a lot of people that kind of, are heavily invested in British basketball and will get upset if things aren't going their way, or things aren't happening in the way that they want them to go. So yeah, many a time, like, it would be much easier for me in many ways to quit and go and take a full-time job. I've been headhunted for a couple of positions over the years with pretty big basketball organisations to work on their digital content full-time, but I've turned them down because, one, I want to do what I love and be in control of what I'm doing, but two, I really care about British basketball, and that's what, for me personally, that's what gave me all these opportunities growing up. That's what created all these memories for me, all these friendships, all these connections. And I want to kind of see it through. I want to help grow the game, help it reach its potential. And I think when, as much as there is the negative and downside of it, of people that might criticise what I do, there's also a massive amount of people that really support what I do and know the market in the UK is tiny, the community is very, very tight, and I get, some really nice messages of support, and it's stuff like that keeps me going. I tweeted a few weeks ago that anytime anyone says positive things about your work, you screenshot it and put it in a folder in your desktop, which is exactly what I've got. And then when things get difficult, I kind of will open it up and just go through all these people that are saying really, really nice things and really, really appreciate the work that me and the team that I work with do. So yeah, for sure. I mean, taking this route isn't easy. I think for anyone that wants to run their own business, like, it's definitely not a walk in the park. But at the same time, if you believe in what you're doing and you have a higher purpose than just trying to earn a bit of cash, I think that if I can earn a full-time living with British basketball, which is like probably one of the smallest niches that you could ever have, then I would say that a lot of people can do a lot better than they think with whatever the niche might be, whether it's knitting for old people or gardening or whatever it might be. So yeah.
And when you talk about it took you a long time to get there, what is it that your day-to-day tasks nowadays look like updating what is it that you actually make an income with, like updating the website and like? So I
explain to people a lot of the time that actually the site directly doesn't make that much money. it probably could afford a couple of holidays a year or whatever, and that's through direct advertising. So we do advertising campaigns with various different either brands or basketball programs in the UK that want to advertise to a UK market. 80% of our traffic is British, so if anyone's trying to reach a UK basketball audience, it's very, very targeted. And so even though we don't get a lot of those campaigns, when we do, we can charge much higher CPMs because the audience is so targeted. We've got a partnership with YouTube, which again doesn't make a lot of money, but it does bring in a little bit of cash. But the main purpose that the site serves is almost as a portfolio for me. And so we freelance. So I freelance with a variety of different basketball teams and organisations. Work with FIBA, the World Governing Body. Work with the professional league in the UK, the BBL. Work with the governing body in the UK, Basketball England, and we help them with their digital content. So that might be writing articles or game reports. That might be social media stuff. That might be putting together top 10 plays or video compilations. So it's kind of a whole different variety of things that all focus around their sort of web-based content for their basketball organisation. So that's kind of like the way it works. I'm in a position now where I'm trying to move away from freelancing. As I said in the start of the interview, I had a bit of a wake-up call last year when I tried to get a mortgage, and the banks just wouldn't lend me any type of substantial amount of money for me to be able to do that. And I kind of realised that if I carry on like I'm doing, even though I can survive on a day-to-day and pay a little bit of money to people that work with me, if I carry on like I'm doing, I'm going to get to, I'm 31 now, I started this when I was 23, I'm going to get to 40 years old and I'm going to still be, not be able to buy a house and settle down, which I do want at some point. So at the start of last season, I was like, right, I'm just going to focus on earning money, sign a load of freelance contracts, way more contracts than I'd ever signed before, and a lot more money than I'd ever earned before, but was just working so much, like,
10 active income.
Yeah.
Like you have to work with.
Yeah, selling my time for money, and for me, it's just not scalable, and that's where the software side of things comes in, where it's like it's an actual product, and for the first time, it will allow us to monetize the audience that we have. Because right now, so when I started, the focus was always on building the traffic, getting as many unique visitors as possible, getting our social media followers up, and then kind of having that realization, well, whether we do 50,000 uniques in a month or whether we do 5,000 uniques in a month, it doesn't actually change my personal situation. I'm now in a position where I could shut down Hoopsfix, it makes zero income, and just still make pretty much exactly the same amount of money that I'm making. Pretty much all my income comes from the freelancing stuff. But that's not scalable. So the software product, which is called Mason, we pre-sold it to 6 customers who we've now onboarded. We're constantly making refinements to the product, and I'm kind of in sales mode, trying to get as many customers as possible to hopefully be in a position in the next 6 to 12 months that that can replace my client income, and then I feel like I'll be completely in control of my own destiny. Yeah.
I think you touched upon a very interesting topic there. For anybody who's watching this who is still currently working as a freelancer or as an employee follows the same scheme. Basically, you're working for the time that you have in any given day against the money that you're paid for your time, right? So that you can only scale by working more, but there's only so many hours in a day. Like at some point you won't be able to scale your income anymore. And I find the same, like when I was working as an employee in a corporate company before, I was entitled to certain raises of a given number of years. Let's say I'd stay in the company for another 2 years, then I'd be entitled to a raise and a promotion, and I'd get some more money, but I'd still, like, it's not scalable in the sense that software as a service is, for example, right? So for example, when you realize that you are working as a freelancer, you're trading your time for money, at some point you realize that in order to scale your income, in order to be like more financially independent and also location independent and everything that comes with it, how did you go about launching your software, and where did you feel like you got the information that you needed in order to devise the strategy to launch your software? Because that's like, it's a lot about business savviness, right? Like to like pre-launch a product and then like go into like the full launch and actually like to start scaling up the software. Yeah,
I think that over the years, when I've looked at how I'm going to grow Hoopsfix, I then ended up becoming really, really into business. And you've got to look into SEO, you've got to look into paid advertising if you're going to do that. You've got to look into sort of mission statements and values and all that kind of stuff. And so as a result, I mean, I consume probably way too much content around business. I listen to 2 to 3 hours of podcasts a day. I read a lot of books, and kind of over the last probably 2-3 years, I've started, really getting obsessed with the idea of software. And I think that a lot of a lot of very successful SaaS companies started out as consultants, because it means that or freelancers, where you're working close to your target market, your customer on a day-to-day, so you can see what their problems are. And so for me, like the nature of what Mason does is allows people without any sort of design or technical knowledge to be able to create really nice looking social media graphics. So what we would do with some of our clients at the start of the season was we'd create a bunch of Photoshop templates, which they could then edit over the course of the season. But the problem is they would need someone that knows Photoshop, someone that has Photoshop, and someone that has the time. And so it would always be a ball ache where we'd do these things and then all of a sudden they wouldn't end up using them because it's just too much of a hassle. And so I started thinking, oh well, if we could systematize this, if we could remove the need for Photoshop, if we could make it a lot quicker so that they can literally just log into a dashboard, change the background photo, change the score, and then export the image, it might have legs. So I started having tentative conversations with some of my clients and said, this is what I'm potentially trying to build. Is it something that would interest you? And I got really, really positive feedback. I also put an email out. I've got a small email list, about 4,000 through Hoopsfix, and I just said, oh look, I'm working on this. If you work for a basketball team or organisation and you're interested in help with your social media graphics, let me know what you think. Had a lot of positive feedback, so I then said I wanted people to part with their money. I didn't want it to be just a case of they say, yeah, I'm interested. So before I committed to a developer, I wanted them to have money in my bank account, so I asked for a very small down payment from everyone that said they were interested. From those probably initial 10 to 20, we got 6 of them to actually transfer money into my bank account as a commitment. They were given a pretty heavy discounted rate in return for being an early adopter. And then that was enough validation for me to hire a developer and it's cost me a fair amount of money to build the first prototype, which we now have. And now it's a case of, we've got a load of features that we want to add to it to improve on it. But I don't want to do that until we have more customers, so it's a case of trying to scale up and make more sales at this point, and then once we have more sales, more customers, we'll then spend a bit more money on improving the UI, the UX, and adding features to it.
Of course, yeah. And let's say we're at the end of the year, 2017, December, as this recording shows. Where would you like to go in 2018 with Hoopsfix and with basically like your professional, personal growth with regards to what you're doing with the website and the project?
I would be pretty disappointed by if the end of 2018 I hadn't dropped on my clients. I wasn't in a position where I'd replace my freelance income with product income. That is the number one goal. And then with Hoopsfix is to carry on growing it. Like I feel like if I had, when Mason is in a position where it's making a lot more money, it takes the pressure off creatively to be able to do what we like, and we don't have to do things to make money. So we have a lot more time to do creative projects. The start of this year I got really burnt out and I ended up cancelling an annual event that we do every summer. I'd like to bring that back. We normally have a range of sponsors for that, but again, if we have a product that's making a large amount of money, all of a sudden we can sponsor it with the product. The event will create an audience and exposure for the product, and hopefully will lead to more sales for the product. So it's almost like creating the entire ecosystem, so that all of the events that we run, the website advertising will be dedicated to the product, and then all of a sudden it makes a difference where if we're going from 5,000 to 50,000 unique visitors, that will actually make a tangible difference to how much money it makes us, which allows us to then put more money back into the game to do the creative projects that don't necessarily make a lot of money. So,
Cool, very, very interesting. If anybody from the audience has any questions, I'd also always encourage them to ask them because we're happy to answer any questions. And my final question for today, first of all, thank you so much for the insight that you delivered already. I thought that was really, really cool, and that's I think also why I connected with you initially, because you have something very, very unique. Because, for example, for anybody who's watching this right now, we're out here in Bali, so there's so many location-independent freelancers that we're meeting on a daily basis. Like when you're working in Dojo, it's a very popular co-working space here. But you can mostly put the people in like 2 or 3 categories. So people do like digital marketing, other people do like selling products to Amazon, FBA, other people are doing, let's say, social media marketing or managing. It's 90% or 80% of the people that I meet go through any of these 3 categories, and for you it's something so unique, which is why I really wanted to have you on this call and like to share your insights with our audiences. My last question for you today, if anybody is watching this right now, let's say they're stuck in a job that isn't fulfilling them as they would like to, but they're still on the verge, they're still thinking about like whether they should take the leap and go into freelancing with the skills that they've acquired through their corporate jobs, or whether they should start like building out their own business, whether it's e-commerce or anything else, what do you think would be the most, if you can say that, most valuable piece of insight that you've gathered over the years when it comes to working for yourself and not being relying on anybody else to like push you, you know?
I think the biggest thing is just to do something. You know, like it doesn't matter what it is, it's just to do something. I think so many people are caught up with, you know, I get caught up in consuming so much content, but actually, you know, without applying that knowledge, there's no point in consuming it, right? And, you know, people, I mean, so many people that have these ideas and that want to do all this stuff, they don't actually do anything. And it's just, it's taking steps and you know, like I've tried so much stuff over the years that's failed. But it's like I tried it, and then by learning that it doesn't work, that helps me with the next time with doing something that does work. So it's just throwing mud at the wall and just seeing what sticks. I just think it's just actually taking action on the ideas that you have. So, you know, whatever, you know, no matter how small the step is, just do something.
I think to round this off, there's this quote by Gary Vaynerchuk, whether you like him or whether you don't. He has this quote that I think is hung up in his office. For anybody that doesn't know him, he's very big in like digital marketing, online marketing, social media marketing. He has this quote in his office which says, "Ideas are shit, execution is everything." And while that might be a bit harsh, I think there's a lot of truth to it, because there's so many people who have a lot of potential, who are very talented, who have great ideas, but they never put them into action, right? Like they never take the action that is necessary to become successful in order to start the first step. It's so many people at the end of their lives wish that they would have done more, and they always think, what if? Like, as you said, perfectly speaking, like the most important thing that I also believe is to take action, and then little by little, like the more action you take, the more results you'll see. It's not by like, daydreaming. It's just to take action. Thank you very much for this call. I don't think we have any other questions. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And I will be very curious to see where you're going with this in 2018.
So am I.